God teaches that those who live in sin will face the consequences. All pride will ultimately crumble under the light of truth. Veronica was a name spoken with admiration in high society. She owned a chain of luxury jewelry stores, renowned for their dazzling diamonds and prestigious branding. On the surface, she was the epitome of success, a brilliant businesswoman and a role model admired by many. But behind the glittering facade lay a dark secret known only to Veronica. She had built her empire on illegal activities, smuggling counterfeit gemstones, laundering money through intricate transactions, and manipulating market prices for profit. To her, wealth was everything, even if it meant driving others into despair. Veronica had no faith in ethics or compassion. She often said, "Life is a game, and the winner is the one who knows how to seize power. Poverty is just an excuse for losers who don't know how to rise above it." Every day, she stepped out in glamorous outfits, emerging from her sleek limousine without sparing a glance at the pleading eyes of the homeless on the streets. To her, they were nothing more than lazy, useless people, society's trash, as she liked to call them. Veronica was proud of her success, convinced of her invincibility, but little did she know, the empire she had so carefully built would soon come crashing down, and it would all start with what seemed like an insignificant encounter with a homeless man. It was a crisp evening, and Veronica had just left a grand gala held in her honor. The night had been filled with applause and admiration, with guests praising her brilliance and entrepreneurial success. Draped in a designer gown, she exuded confidence and power as she gracefully made her way to the gleaming black limousine waiting for her at the entrance. Another perfect night, she thought to herself as the car pulled away from the brightly lit venue, her mind already racing with thoughts of her next big business move. As the car slowed to a stop at a red light on a quieter street, Veronica glanced out the window. Her gaze landed on a man sitting on the curb beneath the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. The man was a stark contrast to the opulence Veronica was surrounded by. His clothes were torn and dirty, his hair unkempt, and his face marked by exhaustion and hardship. His hollow eyes, surrounded by dark circles, seemed to tell a story of struggle that Veronica had no interest in hearing. In front of him lay a battered old hat, accompanied by a sign written in uneven, shaky handwriting. "I'm very hungry. Please help." Veronica's nose wrinkled slightly in disdain as the limousine came to a halt just a few feet away from the man. She usually avoided this kind of confrontation, preferring to ignore such sights altogether. But that night, as if on a whim, she decided to step out of the car and stretch her legs while grabbing a coffee from a nearby cafe. As she walked past the man, the faint shuffle of his movements caught her attention. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, she felt a jolt of something. Was it pity? Annoyance? She wasn't sure. But before she could decipher it, the man spoke in a voice rough from fatigue but steady with sincerity. "Ma'am," he began, "I'm starving. Could you spare a little food or money? May God bless you for your kindness." Veronica stopped, her designer heels clicking against the pavement as she turned to face him fully. She tilted her head slightly, scanning him from head to toe with an air of superiority. The silence between them stretched uncomfortably before she finally broke it with a loud, mocking laugh. "God," she said, her voice dripping with incredulity. "If God cared about you, why are you sitting here begging on the street? You think your prayers are going to fix this?" She paused for effect, letting the harshness of her words sink in. "You're wasting your time and mine. People like you will always be the scum of society." The man didn't flinch at her words. Instead, he smiled faintly, a serene expression spreading across his tired face. His calm demeanor only seemed to irritate Veronica further. "Miss Veronica," he said softly, his voice warm but firm, Don't forget that wealth doesn't last forever. God has a way of balancing everything, whether you believe it or not. For a brief moment, Veronica froze, her confident exterior cracking just slightly. How did this man know her name? Was it just a lucky guess? Quickly regaining her composure, she sneered, masking her unease with derision. When God helps you become successful, come find me, she said with a smirk, her tone laced with mockery, though I doubt you'll ever have that chance. Without waiting for a response, Veronica turned on her heel and strode back to her car. As the chauffeur opened the door for her, she glanced back briefly at the man. He remained seated, his deep, knowing eyes following her movements. As she settled into the plush leather seat of her limousine, the man's voice rose once more, clear and steady despite its hoarseness. God will teach a lesson to those who believe they don't need his help. I hope you'll be ready for it. Veronica rolled her eyes as the door shut behind her. The car glided away into the night, leaving the man behind in the glow of the street lamp. To her, the encounter was insignificant, a brief interruption in an otherwise perfect evening. What Veronica didn't realize was that this fleeting moment, dismissed so easily by her, was the beginning of a lesson she would never forget. A few days after Veronica's dismissive encounter with the homeless man, her meticulously curated world showed no signs of slowing down. Her office was as pristine and orderly as ever, buzzing with energy as her staff scrambled to meet her impossibly high standards. Sitting in her plush leather chair, Veronica sifted through the day's mail with the same level of disinterest she reserved for anything that didn't immediately scream opportunity. Bills, reports, invitations. Nothing seemed particularly noteworthy until her assistant brought in a sleek black envelope. The envelope was unlike the others, luxurious to the touch, with her name embossed in elegant gold lettering. Intrigued, Veronica tore it open. Inside was an invitation to an exclusive business meeting hosted at one of the most opulent mansions in the city. The host was a major investor, whispered about in elite circles as someone who could make or break businesses with a single investment. Few had ever met him in person, adding an air of mystery to his reputation. The invitation promised a rare opportunity to pitch to this elusive figure, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to elevate her brand to global domination. Veronica's heart quickened with excitement as she reread the details. She could already imagine the headlines. Luxury mogul Veronica secures multi-million-dollar investment. This was her moment. Without hesitation, she RSVP'd, determined to seize the opportunity. The days leading up to the event were filled with meticulous preparation. Veronica spared no expense in selecting the perfect attire. A shimmering silver gown tailored to perfection, paired with her finest diamond necklace. Every detail, from her shoes to her manicure, had to project success and power. I'm not just selling my brand, she thought, staring at her reflection in the mirror. I'm selling myself. On the evening of the event, Veronica arrived in her signature style. Her limousine glided up the long cobblestone driveway leading to the sprawling estate, its grand facade illuminated by an array of warm lights. Guests were already mingling outside, their laughter and chatter filling the crisp evening air. As her chauffeur opened the door, Veronica stepped out, her heels clicking confidently against the stones. Heads turned as she walked toward the entrance, her presence commanding attention. The mansion's grand foyer was breathtaking. An enormous crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over the polished marble floors. The room was a symphony of wealth, ornate decorations, priceless artwork, and a crowd dressed in the finest couture. Veronica's practiced smile never wavered as she greeted familiar faces, exchanging pleasantries and basking in the subtle admiration she elicited. She navigated the room with ease, effortlessly inserting herself into conversations with potential allies and subtly sizing up competitors. Veronica had a knack for reading people, and she could tell that tonight. Many of them were vying for the same prize, a chance to secure the mysterious investor's favor. She relished the competition, confident that she would outshine them all. The formal meeting began in a grand hall adorned with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the mansion's sprawling gardens. Each attendee was given a chance to present their projects. One by one, entrepreneurs took the stage, delivering polished pitches backed by glossy presentations and ambitious numbers. Veronica listened politely, though her focus remained on her own upcoming moment. She knew her proposal would eclipse the others. Her confidence was unshakable. When her turn came, she rose from her seat with poise, her gown catching the light as she ascended the stage. The room fell silent as she approached the podium, every eye fixed on her. Clearing her throat, she began her presentation in a voice that was both commanding and charismatic. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone exuding confidence, "I stand before you not just as a businesswoman, but as someone who understands the true meaning of ambition. I built my jewelry empire from the ground up, transforming a single store into a global brand. Today, my company is not just a business, it's a symbol of success, luxury, and innovation." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "I'm here to share an unparalleled opportunity, one that I believe will redefine the industry. With your investment, I can promise not just success, but exponential growth. Together, we can elevate this brand to heights it has never seen before." Her words were met with enthusiastic applause, and Veronica felt a surge of pride. She glanced around the room, soaking in the admiration. But in the far corner, a man sat silently, his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, he didn't clap or nod in approval. Instead, he watched her with a quiet intensity that unsettled her. The man was Daniel, a former employee of Veronica's. Years ago, Daniel had been one of her most dedicated team members, working tirelessly to support her vision. But his loyalty had been repaid with betrayal. When he stumbled upon unethical practices within the company and raised his concerns, Veronica had dismissed him without a second thought. Worse, she had tarnished his reputation, making it nearly impossible for him to find work elsewhere. Daniel had been invited to the event by the mysterious host, though he didn't know why. Watching Veronica bask in the applause, he couldn't help but wonder if justice was finally within reach. As the meeting drew to a close, a man seated in the front row rose to his feet. The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward him. Veronica froze, her smile faltering as she recognized him, though he looked entirely different. It was the homeless man she had mocked just days ago, but now he was unrecognizable, dressed in a tailored navy suit and exuding an air of authority. He walked to the podium with calm confidence. Each step commanded the room's attention, and Veronica's heart began to race. Reaching the microphone, he adjusted it slightly before speaking in a measured, resonant tone. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald Trump," he began, his voice steady and deliberate. "Recently, I embarked on an experiment. I wanted to see how those in positions of privilege and power treat people they believe to be beneath them. I disguised myself as someone less fortunate and observed how people reacted." A murmur rippled through the room as his words sank in. Veronica's chest tightened. She felt the weight of every gaze on her as Trump's eyes locked onto hers. "Veronica," he said, his voice softening, yet carrying a weight that silenced the room. "We've met before, haven't we?" Her breath caught in her throat. The room seemed to shrink as Trump continued, his words deliberate and unrelenting. "I remember how you treated someone you deemed unworthy of your time. What you forgot is this: wealth and power are fleeting. What truly matters is how we treat others, especially those who cannot repay us in kind." Veronica sat frozen, her practiced composure unraveling as whispers filled the air. Moments later, the room dimmed, and a large screen behind Trump lit up. Detailed documents and incriminating evidence appeared, proof of fraudulent activities within Veronica's company. The audience leaned forward, scrutinizing the damning information. Her pulse quickened. She stood abruptly, her voice trembling as she protested. "This is absurd. None of this proves anything." Trump's gaze never wavered. "You are free to speak your truth," he replied calmly, "but the evidence speaks louder." At that moment, the grand doors at the back of the room opened, and law enforcement officers entered. They approached Veronica with purpose, their presence silencing the room. The lead officer spoke firmly. "Ms. Veronica, you are under investigation for allegations of fraud and legal violations." The room was heavy with judgment as Veronica was escorted out, her head bowed low. Investors who had applauded her earlier now murmured in disappointment. Watching from his seat, Daniel felt a bittersweet sense of closure. This wasn't just the fall of Veronica's empire. It was the beginning of a reckoning that would lay bare the cost of her greed and arrogance. In the first days of her imprisonment, Veronica's world seemed to implode. The once confident businesswoman, who had commanded boardrooms and dazzled society with her wit and charm, now found herself confined to a cold, gray cell. The stark walls and the humbling reality of prison life were a far cry from the opulence she had surrounded herself with for years. Consumed by anger and bitterness, Veronica lashed out at anyone who dared cross her path. She was quick to blame everyone but herself for her downfall. Her accusations were sharp and relentless, especially toward Donald Trump, the man she believed had orchestrated her undoing. "It's a setup," she would shout to anyone who would listen, pacing her cell like a caged lioness. "He was jealous of my success. I don't deserve to be here. I worked harder than anyone to build my empire, and now they're tearing it all down. It's not fair." Her words echoed through the halls of the prison, but they fell on deaf ears. The other inmates, many of whom had heard similar protests from newcomers, quickly grew tired of her rants. Veronica's arrogance and refusal to accept responsibility made her an outcast. She remained aloof, clinging to the belief that she was better than the people around her. To her, they were criminals, and she was a victim. But prison has a way of breaking down even the most stubborn of spirits. Days turned into weeks, and the relentless solitude began to gnaw at Veronica's defenses. She could no longer distract herself with the luxuries she once took for granted. The silence was deafening, and in that silence, the words spoken by Donald Trump at the meeting replayed endlessly in her mind. "God sees everything, and pride always leads to a fall." At first, she tried to push the memory away, scoffing at the notion. But no matter how hard she tried, the words lingered like a shadow, refusing to be ignored. One afternoon, while sitting alone in the prison yard, Veronica met Grace, an older woman with a kind demeanor and a calming presence. Grace had a warm smile and a way of making people feel seen, even in the most desolate of places. She had once been an accountant, but a lapse in judgment had led her to prison. Unlike Veronica, Grace had long since accepted her mistakes and was determined to use her time to grow as a person. Grace approached Veronica with a friendly smile. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the empty spot on the bench. Veronica hesitated but nodded, too tired to argue. The two women sat in silence for a while before Grace spoke. "You remind me of myself when I first got here," she said gently. "Angry at the world, refusing to see the part one played in my own downfall. It's exhausting, isn't it?" Veronica stiffened, not ready to admit any fault. "I don't belong here," she snapped. "This is a mistake." Grace chuckled softly. "That's what I used to tell myself, too. But the truth has a way of catching up with us, no matter how hard we try to deny it. She paused, her expression softening. God never abandons anyone. Veronica, even the biggest sinners are given a chance to change, but it's up to us to open our hearts. Veronica rolled her eyes, dismissing Grace's words as empty platitudes. But over the weeks that followed, Grace continued to approach her, sharing stories of faith and redemption. At first, Veronica listened out of politeness, but slowly, something began to shift. The stories shared by other inmates, women who had endured unimaginable hardships and were now working to rebuild their lives, struck a chord with her. One morning, Veronica received a letter from her lawyer. As she opened it, her heart sank. The familiar signature at the bottom of the page confirmed the sender, Donald Trump. The mere sight of his name reignited her anger. But as she began to read, her emotions turned to something she hadn't felt in years: humility. Veronica, when I stood on that stage, I didn't just want to expose the truth. I hoped that you would see an opportunity to change. God always gives us the chance to start over, but it's up to us to acknowledge our mistakes and use them to create something good. I believe you can become a better person, not because of wealth or power, but because you've experienced what success means. Now, you have the chance to find its true meaning by helping those who need it most, just as you once wanted others to help you. Reflect on this. Veronica, there is still time to start anew. Wishing you peace. Donald J. Trump. The letter left her speechless. For the first time, Veronica felt neither anger nor defiance. Instead, a deep sense of remorse began to creep into her heart. She thought of all the people she had hurt, employees, competitors, and even strangers she had dismissed as unworthy. The weight of her actions pressed down on her, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully. Motivated by the letter, Veronica began to change. She borrowed a Bible from Grace and started reading it, searching for meaning in the verses she had once dismissed. One passage struck her deeply. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. James 4 verse 10. The words echoed in her mind as she joined rehabilitation programs within the prison. She listened to the stories of other inmates, women who had suffered abuse, poverty, and betrayal. One young woman's tale of stealing to feed her child broke Veronica's heart, making her realize how much she had taken her own privileges for granted. Bit by bit, Veronica's hardened exterior began to soften. She started helping other inmates, offering encouragement where she could and listening without judgment. Small acts of kindness, things she once would have deemed beneath her, brought a sense of peace she had never known. By the time she was released, Veronica was no longer the woman she had been. Her wealth and reputation were gone, but for the first time, she felt free. With the little money she had left, she founded a nonprofit organization to support homeless individuals, the very people she had once scorned. She also began speaking at churches and community centers, sharing her story to warn others about the dangers of greed and arrogance. One evening, at a charity event organized by her nonprofit, Veronica spotted a familiar face in the crowd. It was Donald Trump. She approached him hesitantly, her hands trembling as she spoke. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you for not only exposing my mistakes, but for giving me the chance to change. Without you, I would have remained a selfish, blind person forever." Trump smiled warmly, his tone kind but firm. "It wasn't me, Veronica. It was God who gave you the opportunity. You recognized it, and that's what matters most." In that moment, Veronica felt something she had never felt before: true gratitude. For the first time, she understood what it meant to live a life of purpose, not for herself, but for others. Veronica's story isn't just a tale of downfall. It's a stark reminder that wealth and power, no matter how immense, can never truly conceal the truth. Her life serves as a warning to those who believe that money can shield them from accountability or that their actions toward others don't matter. In the end, the truth has a way of surfacing, and when it does, pride and arrogance crumble under its weight. Donald Trump, in this story, acted not just as a figure of accountability, but as a messenger of a valuable life lesson. Through his experiment and actions, he reminded everyone in the room and beyond that life is about more than status or material success. Trump's words carried a weight that lingered long after they were spoken. Love and compassion are what truly define the worth of a person. For many in the room, those words sparked introspection. How often do we walk past someone in need without a second thought? How often do we measure success by numbers in a bank account instead of the impact we have on the lives of others? Trump's reminder wasn't just for Veronica. It was for everyone privileged enough to be in that room, and for anyone who has ever forgotten that success means nothing without kindness. The gathering at the mansion had been a showcase of wealth, power, and influence, but as Trump spoke, those very values seemed hollow in comparison to the greater truths he revealed. The opulent chandeliers, the designer suits, and the luxurious settings, all of it felt insignificant in the face of the lesson being delivered. Trump's calm demeanor and unwavering gaze cut through the facade that many had built around themselves. He turned a mirror onto the room, asking an unspoken question. What kind of legacy are you building? One of greed and self-service, or one of generosity and empathy? As Trump quoted the Bible, the gravity of his message deepened. Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and humility comes before honor. Proverbs 18 verse 12. For Veronica, this was the very essence of her downfall. Her unchecked pride had blinded her to the needs of others and the consequences of her actions. Her story became a living example of the Proverbs' truth, a cautionary tale for anyone who lets arrogance dictate their path. The room was silent as his words hung in the air. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared at the floor, lost in thought. Veronica's disgrace was not just her own. It was a reflection of what could happen to anyone who allowed pride and ambition to overshadow integrity and compassion. Trump's closing message was clear and direct, live with humility and honesty. For in the end, only those qualities endure forever. It wasn't a statement meant to condemn, but one meant to inspire change. Humility isn't weakness, it's strength. Honesty isn't a burden, it's freedom. And in a world that often values appearances over authenticity, these virtues stand out all the more. For Veronica, the lesson had come too late to save her empire, but not too late to save her soul. And for those who listened to Trump's words that night, it was a call to reevaluate their lives and the legacies they would leave behind. The message of Veronica's story doesn't just apply to the wealthy or the powerful, it's universal. It's a reminder that no matter who we are or what we have achieved, we are measured by how we treat others. It's a call to action for everyone to live with integrity, kindness, and humility. Because at the end of the day, it isn't our wealth, titles, or achievements that define us. It's the love we give, the compassion we show, and the honesty with which we live. And as the Bible reminds us, honor comes only to those who first choose humility. Did Veronica's story of redemption resonate with you? Her journey is a powerful reminder that no matter how far we fall, there's always a chance to change. We all make mistakes, but what defines us is how we rise above them, learn from them, and turn them into something good. If this story moved you, inspired reflection, or made you think differently, we'd love to hear from you. Like this video if you believe in second chances. Veronica's transformation began with a single step, a choice to open her heart and take responsibility for her actions. By liking this video, you show us that stories of growth, humility, and redemption matter. Every like helps us continue to share meaningful content with you and others. Leave a comment below and share your perspective. Have you ever experienced a moment that taught you a humbling lesson? Or maybe you've seen someone close to you transform their life for the better. We'd love to hear your story. Your thoughts could inspire someone else to reflect or take a step toward their own journey of change. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like Veronica's. Her transformation is just one example of how life's toughest moments can lead to incredible growth. By subscribing, you'll never miss a story that might inspire or encourage you. Plus, your support helps us continue to create content that uplifts and motivates people around the world. Share this video with friends and family who might need to hear this message. Whether it's a reminder of the power of humility or the importance of second chances, Veronica's story could be the spark that helps someone else find hope or take a step toward change. Together, we can spread positivity and encouragement. Thank you for being part of our community and supporting stories that matter. Let Veronica's story inspire you to be more compassionate, forgiving, and open to growth. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding, one like, one comment, and one share at a time. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe today. Your engagement makes all the difference.